Next up, we have Samuel Cosmi, the offensive tackle out of Texas, who I believe is going to be a sort of fan favorite in many regards, just based off a couple of things, right? First off, his experience, right? He started in 34 games in his career at Texas, which obviously a lot of these other guys we've talked about have sort of smaller sample sizes. Cosmi certainly doesn't, right? Then you look at just the raw sort of testing numbers as well as his just physical measurables. You're talking about a guy who's 6'7", 309. Maybe didn't look that tall. I'll be honest, didn't look that big on film, but that's what he's measuring in at. As well as you look at the pro day numbers, he ran a 4.86 and did 36 reps on bench. So you're looking at a guy who is kind of similar to Tevin Jenkins in a lot of ways, in my eyes, in the fact that physical freak. He's massive in stature, right? Strong guy, but at the end of the day, does have some technical concerns. I know for a guy with Cosmi's experience, I felt like his technique just simply wasn't where it really should be or needs to be if you're going to be taking him early in the 2021 NFL draft. I felt like one thing that was really prevalent, especially in those 2020 films, was his base. He was constantly compromising his base in terms of clicking his heels together, right? So instead of taking one step, two steps, three steps, four steps, and keeping that wide base the entire way through, he would take a very short first step and then a big second step, right? And then click your heels together. Next step, big. Now this one even bigger. Click them together again, right? And you can get away with that a little bit more at the college level than you will at the NFL level because, Khalil Mack is a perfect example of somebody who, if he sees one step upfield that your base is narrow, he's just going to take that initial get off speed and transition it straight into power immediately. And when you have your feet together, a narrow base and no real footing in the ground, he's just gonna flat out lay you out and get a sack on the QB, right? That's just not going to work. If you aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, right, and you don't understand really the reason you would want a wide base compared to a narrow base, stand up, right? Get a friend, a family member, whoever's around you, and have that person sort of give you a nudge up here in just your general upper body area, and then feel that compared to doing it again with a wide base, right, where your feet are say shoulder width apart, maybe a little bit wider. You're going to feel how much more you are kind of wobbling and moving, and how much more compromised you are when your feet are narrow versus when your feet are wide. Everybody, whether you're a kid and are just building towers out of toys, or whether you're an adult and actually building buildings, they'll tell you that the higher you need or want your tower to go, the wider base you're going to need to have, right? Because if you have a really tiny narrow base, when in a real tall tower, a gust of wind's going to come by, and next thing you know, that tower has tipped over, right? I mean, look at a Jenga tower, for example, obviously. Well, Sam Cosmi, for example, by example, is a 6'7" tower out on the edge every play. And unlike with a building where you might have to wait for a strong gust of wind to come by, there's no waiting, right? As soon as that first whistle blows, there's going to be 60 plays where 260 to 300-pound man that can bench press 400 pounds and run the distance of a football field in 15 seconds or less, that guy's coming at you, and he's not just going to give you a nudge on the shoulder. This guy's trying to use all that force, use all that acceleration, use all that strength to put Cosmi down, right? And, that's just not going to work, right? You got to work on that base, and you can't compromise yourself every second step, right? You can't come together each time, and he's getting away with it in college. I don't think he'll be able to get away with it in the NFL. So is it fixable? Most certainly, right? But is it as easy a fix as you might think? No, it's definitely not, right? And I had one teammate who it took him 3.5 years, right? Almost his entire college career. Others have got it in maybe a year and a half. Some people have never got it because you almost have to just sort of break down and forget everything you've learned about your sort of pass block footwork and rebuild from the fundamentals up in that regard. You have to retrain yourself just simply how to move. And a lot of people think that offensive linemen are just sort of shuffling and backpedaling and doing whatever. Well, no, in reality, your footwork, there's some very intricate nuances, and it's a very technical thing that plays a a very significant role in the success you're going to have, right? Because like I said, you almost fell over when your brother gave you a nudge. Well, imagine when that brother's Khalil Mack trying to take your head off. It's just not a recipe for success. Will Cosmi correct it? I have no idea, right? That's on him. But I simply can't ignore the fact that he might not correct it, if that makes any sense at all. Otherwise, I think that he's generally solid, right? In terms of run blocking, I feel like he's pretty solid just based off his sort of size and strength alone. But at the same time, there's stuff he has to clean up there too, right? Whether it's his leverage on contact, whether it's his just footwork in terms of getting in better position to execute said blocks, right? You know, when it's a reach block and your responsibility is, as say a left tackle, to cut off that 3 technique to stop him from making a play on a ball that's going in the opposite direction, you have to work incredibly hard to get to the opposite side of him and cut him off. And, you know, you're a gap removed from that essentially, right? Well, Cosmi, I feel like he's pretty sloppy at times in that regard, in terms of, you know, he'd more so just rather lunge with his upper body and try and sort of grab you with his hands, opposed to actually getting there with his feet. And again, at the next level, when guys are bigger, faster, stronger, that's going to work less and less. So I think that he's solid, but I think he's sort of raw. The only question I have is, as a guy who started 34 games, that rawness concerns me, because is it just the fact that he hasn't been taught those techniques, or is it the fact that he has just been unable to put them into action, right? That's sort of the question there, because otherwise I think he's solid, right? I said the power and strength. I said the sort of physicality and finishing when he does get into you. He's good in that regard. Solid IQ and awareness, and then obviously the great size, length, and athleticism overall. So it comes out to a 72.5, which for me overall, then that has him as my lowest graded offensive tackle to this point, which honestly, that's not necessarily that bad, because everybody that I've graded so far I thought was pretty good. It's not like running back or defensive tackle where we have guys with third, fourth, fifth round grades so far. Everybody to this point has kind of been in that middle of the second round and higher discussion, right? So is it something bad to say that, oh, Sam Cosmi might be the 50th best prospect in the draft for me by the time this whole process is said and done? I don't necessarily think so. I think that he's a guy with a super high ceiling. You know, if you can correct those various footwork issues and clean up what he's doing as a run blocker, I think that you could have a guy who has a very nice long career in the NFL. However, you know, if he's unable to fix those various footwork and mechanical issues, I wouldn't want to be the GM who drafts him in the first round, which is for me where I've seen quite a few people have him sort of slipping into that late first round discussion, whether it's 25 and beyond. I just wouldn't feel comfortable there. I think there's some better options there. I think that there will continue to potentially be some better options in future videos with other guys that I do. So he's not a bad player by any means. I'm just not sure if right now, day one, he's really equipped to be an NFL starter. But I certainly think he could get there. There is just a risk in him not getting there, and that's why I have him a little bit lower than other people might. So with that being said, hopefully you guys did enjoy this video today. Obviously, if you did, leave a like, leave a comment, tell me your thoughts on Cosmi, tell me your thoughts on maybe just my offensive tackle rankings in general to this point. Obviously, I know Slater versus Sewell was a little bit of a hot take in some regards and to many people, but otherwise, do you have maybe Mayfield ahead of Darisaw? Do you have Mayfield significantly lower, right? Just tell me and talk to me about your overall rankings there, because I always love to have a discussion in the comments, hear your guys' feedback, whether it's whether it's good or bad. Always interested in that. But no, otherwise, if you guys did enjoy, as I said, please subscribe. We're on the road to 100 subscribers, so right around 77 right now. But hey, you could always be the 78th. So with that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. I'm mic'd up. Now I'm mic'ing out. Peace, guys.